Hey guys, welcome back to You in a Garage. Today we're going to be working on this blue 74 K5 Jimmy. Got a Blazer badge. Anyway, I know it's a Jimmy. We've got a blue 74 Jimmy in here that belongs to our friend Alan. And what he wants us to do is get this thing running so that he can go wheeling next summer. Let's take a look at the truck. As you can see, it's already been LS swapped. It's got a nice 5.3 in here. It did run when Alan bought the truck, but it's not running now. You can see the wiring's kind of a mess. We did put a new battery in it just in case that was the issue, but that's not it. We can't get it to crank, so we're going to be doing some diagnostics, see if we can't get this thing running for him. Come around to the back here and see this big pile of goodies? Well, this is all stuff Alan has bought for the truck. We've got some nice PRP seats that we're going to be installing, new console, new drive shaft. We got it in here with no drive shaft. And there's actually a soft top in here somewhere as well that if we get time, we'll be messing with that. As you can see, the interior's pretty much gutted. There's not much in here right now. And that's because Alan wants us to install a roll cage. But first step, let's get it running. After we replace the battery, it's still not cranking. So we're going to jump the starter, see if that's any good, and move on from there. Okay, so using the screwdriver, we're able to test and make sure that the starter's good. So the problem is a connection between the key and the starter. Strangely enough, after we jumped the starter, the key started working. So we've obviously got an open, loose wire somewhere, or possibly an issue with the fusible link, but we'll chase that down later. For now, it's working, so let's move on. All right, when you're trying to troubleshoot why an engine won't start, it's real simple. There's three things that every engine needs: fuel, air, spark. And so what you need to do is try and figure out which one of those or multiple of those things it doesn't have. As long as the air filter isn't completely clogged, you're getting air. So it really comes down to fuel and spark. Well, the easiest way to try and figure out which one of those things it is spray a little starting fluid down the intake and crank it over. If it tries to start on the starting fluid, well, you're getting spark. And that also means you're not getting fuel because the engine should run if it had fuel and spark. So we're going to spray a little starting fluid in here and see if that tells us where the problem is. Okay. Well, obviously, with starting fluid, it cranked over. So that's good news. It means that we are getting spark, which probably means the computer's running the way it's supposed to. So it's not a huge electrical issue. So now we need to figure out, is the fuel pump even pumping? And maybe this thing's just out of gas. All right, I spent a little time trying to figure out if the fuel pump in this thing is actually working or not. First, I did it the hard way. I went, got a battery out of another vehicle, drug it over here, hooked the wires up to the leads coming out of the fuel pump, listened hard, didn't hear anything. So at that point, I realized, you know what would have been way simpler? To check the lead coming to the fuel pump from up front there and see if there's any power. So nice simple test light, hook this to ground, touch the lead, boop, light came on. So yes, we were getting power to the fuel pump all the time. So it looks like we've got a bad fuel pump. So in these old Blazers, the only way to drop the fuel pump, or the only way to get the fuel pump out, is to drop the tank. And that's a giant pain in the butt. So what we're going to do is we're going to upgrade this Blazer to have an access hatch. We install these in pretty much every Blazer that we deal with now. Some people do not see this as an upgrade, cutting a hole in the floor, but really, you install this access hatch underneath the carpet, you'll never see it. But man, if you ever need to access a fuel pump on the trail, it's invaluable. Anyway, we've got a whole video on how to do this, but we're going to get this thing installed and access the fuel pump and see if we can figure out why it's not working and see if we need to replace it. This is just the old crappy carpet that Alan plans on getting rid of anyway. So since we need to remove it all to install the roll cage correctly anyway, now seemed like a good time as any to pull it along with everything else that's bolted in the back of the Jimmy. This high lift jack mount is actually a pretty nice piece, so we'll set that aside to reuse once we get the new cage built. I brought my son in to help me access some of the old roll bar bolts. Sometimes the most important tool in the shop is just an extra set of hands. With everything unbolted, I disassembled the old roll cage and unloaded everything out the back. Check it out. I just pulled the carpet up on this. This thing has been closed, windows sealed for months. And look how wet the floor is in here. Yeah. These things do not seal well. With everything cleared out of the way, it was just a simple matter of measuring to get the right spot, then cutting a hole in the floor to match the size of the hatch. We have a more detailed video on the whole process already, so I'll add that in a link below. All right, now we've got the hatch installed here, and you can see, open that up, and bam. There is a top of fuel tank, and there's our sending unit and everything we need to access. So now it's just a simple matter of pulling the ring there, and we can pull all that out and see what the problem is. I'll tell you right now, it smells like old gas, so that might be an issue. But let's get this pulled out and check the fuel pump. We've got the fuel sender and pump pulled out. See right here. Got it over here on our table, so let's take a look and see if we can test this pump, see if it's any good. Nothing. So, all right, that wasn't the easiest way to show you, but tested it a couple times and given power to the pump here, absolutely nothing. So this pump is gone. All right, we are back from the parts store and we have our new pump ready to get installed. So with this having an LS in it, we want to make sure that we have a pump that's capable of providing the pressure it needs. The LS needs about 65 PSI, and so we're using the EP 381 equivalent pump from Delphi. And you can see here, let's take a look at this. This pump is quite a bit bigger than the pump that we pulled out. My guess is that this is probably the stock fuel pump that came in mid-80s Blazer, which would be only about 24 PSI. So it probably ran like crap using this pump. So this is going to be a nice upgrade anyway. You can see that this thing's really rusty, smells like crap. So the gas in the tank was old and going bad anyway. But with this submerged pump, it wasn't submerged. There wasn't enough fuel in the tank to keep the pump submerged. So it was basically just sitting there, getting rusty, and that's probably what killed it. Anyway, so we tested that and we got nothing. Let's hook this thing up to power and see what we get. Whew, well, it works. Okay. All right. So now we've proven this thing works before we go into getting it all installed. So now we just need to get this installed in the sending unit here. and then we can get it reinstalled in the tank. Because this pump was a little taller than the old one, we had to cut down the rubber hose that connects the outlet to the pump, but otherwise it fit right in. Got the fuel pump all installed, back in the tank, got the wiring hooked up. So let's see if she can get her started. All right, heard the fuel pump come on, that's a good sign. That's getting better. There we go. All right. Okay, we have us a runner again. Well, that's good news. Okay, now that she's back to running, we can move on to some of the other projects we got to do with this thing. I think it's time to start bending some tube. I said a few minutes ago that we were ready to bend some tube. Turns out, not quite so much. We got Ryan in the shop here today. He's going to help out. And what we're doing is, well, first of all, we're going to pull the rest of the interior of the Alan's truck here. But we had some discussions with him about exactly how the roll cage is going to go together. And we decided the A-pillars need to go through the dash. It just didn't make any sense to go in front of the dash like we were talking before. But in order to do that, we needed to pull the windshield. So we took a break, got a guy in here to pull the windshield for us. And now that that's out, Ryan and I are going to figure out exactly what has to happen to get the dash prepped and ready to go. We're going to get the rest of the interior pulled out. And then hopefully we'll be able to bend some tube. Also, while that was happening, check this out. We got an interesting new project in the shop here. So this is not the usual thing you see in a garage, but we're going to be doing a little bit of work on this. So look forward to seeing that in the future. All right, so with Alan wanting to run the A-pillars through the dash, the point being that we can add an engine cage at some later point. So we need to figure out where the tubes are going to come through the firewall into the engine.
Right, as we get the dash pulled out, we'll be able to see where the cowl comes down, and we can check where we're going to have just the firewall to mess with.
Well, it looks like on the driver's side, there's room below the wiper motor, or maybe over to the side of the wiper motor. It looks like that's going to end up right behind our A-pillar, and it looks like an open spot, so we can get in there.
Right.
That looks good. Over on the passenger side, though, all the HVAC stuff is in the way. The A-pillar is going to be all the way out close to the fender anyway. Yeah. That's where we need to come through. The blower motor is kind of in the way now, but as we saw in ours, the vintage air doesn't use that spot anyway.
Right, they just block it off anyway. So
yeah, if we came through that hole, yeah, we'll just go right through the hole.
Yeah.
And then just
there's a hole right there.
Yeah, that should work. After Ryan and I discussed exactly where the A-pillars will need to end up, we got back to work clearing out the rest of the interior. We also removed all the old seat belts to get them out of the way, because we're going to be installing cage-mounted harnesses anyway.
The blue on this thing just pops.
You would think so. There we go. Okay. All right, Ryan and I got the dash pulled and everything out of the way for the so we can run our A-pillars down here. You can see the windshield's out, and so now you can see right down here. Let's take a look. Right down here, there's this nice hole in the top of the dash. We can run down there, and you can see all the way to the floor. There's my hand down there. So you can see all the way to the floor right here. So we're going to widen this hole out a little bit and that's going to be a perfect spot to run our A-pillar. Let's take a look at the driver's side. All right, so on the driver's side, you can see we've got the same hole here, so that gives us a place to poke down through. But there's a lot more stuff back here in the way in order to get down to the floor. So we had to pull the parking brake. That was right up in there, those two holes right there, and get all that out of the way. So now we have a clear line here, and we're going to land our A-pillar right about in this area, I think. We may need to pull the bright switch off right here, but we can move that and mount it back to our cage plate if we need to. But now that everything's basically cleared out of the way, we should be in good shape. The foundation of any cage is the B-pillar hoop. We started by putting the old hoop back in to see if we liked the look enough to use it as a template. It looked pretty good, so I sketched it out on the concrete and got to work bending up our own hoop. Obviously, we're time-lapsing the process here so that the video doesn't end up hours long, but it really takes a lot of time to measure out and set up your bends. I'm using a digital angle finder here to make sure so that the hoop turns out right. You got to be really careful when making multiple bends on the same tube so that they end up in the same plane. We've got the B-pillar all bent up. We've got the feet landing exactly where we want them. Normally, we would probably try and get a little closer to the bedsides to, maximize the room between the feet. But on this Blazer, there's a few things underneath that are going to make that a little difficult, and that's why we landed the feet where we did. Let me show you what I'm talking about. All right, right here, we landed the foot right here on the top of this rib. And you can see that there's a couple of bolt holes here already from the old, basically decorative roll bar that was in here. And so the reason that's where it is because of there's a cross member here and there's some support braces back here. So there's really no place to bolt through the floor except for right where these two bolt holes are. Well, on the old one, they basically planted it like this. Bolt holes here, cage ends up back here. But we want to support our roll bar down through the floor and all the way into the frame. So we need to center this up so that we land right at the center of this so that we can come underneath here and go to the frame. So we're going to have to modify our cage plates here so that we bolt through the center on either side. We're only going to have 2 bolts on this instead of 4, which is a bit of a bummer, but sometimes compromises have to be made. And really, these bolts are only bolting this to the tube that's underneath there, and it's going to be supported all the way into the frame. Here I'm checking the angle of the floor before tacking in the B-pillar hoop. I want to make sure that the B-pillars end up perpendicular to the floor. If you just assume that the floor is level, you could end up a few degrees off. All right, now that we have the B-pillar tacked in place, we can move on to working on the rest of the cage. Now, there's a couple of ways you can do this. One way is to run A-pillars from the B-pillar back here, straight down, all the way down here, and then through the dash. How I think I'm going to do this one is I'm going to actually build a halo up here, and then we'll connect the A-pillars into the halo. So what that means is we're going to run a tube from the B-pillar down here, across the top of the windshield frame, and then back to the B-pillar. Now, the concern I have on this particular one is being able to remove the hard top. You can see there's these brackets here with a couple of bolts into the windshield frame and then 1 bolt into the hard top. When we put the A-pillar here, we need to be able to make sure that you have access to all of those bolts still. So ideally, the tube is going to run right in between those two so that you can access this on the inside and this on the outside and be able to pull the hardtop whenever you want. When building a cage, obviously it needs to be built with safety in mind, but it also needs to look good. Here I'm putting in a couple of 3-degree bends, just so it matches the arc of the windshield frame a little bit better. I think little touches like this are worth the effort to get a better looking cage. All right, we got the halo bent up, and using some ratchet straps, we're able to hang it approximately in place, and so we can mark the cuts we need to make. It looks like it's going to work out pretty good. If we do this right, it's going to end up right in between those two bolts like we wanted. All right, we've got the halo tacked in place. It turned out really good. It's nice and tight up to the hardtop here, and we made sure that we can access our all our bolts here. There, yep. Plenty of access to be able to remove the hardtop with the cage in place. That's pretty much all we're going to have time for this week. Next week, we're going to get back to work on this. We got a lot of work left to do. We've got the A pillars to do. Got the C pillars to do. We're going to be mounting the seats. Tons of stuff coming up. So we've got a lot of work left to do. So be sure to subscribe so that you know when the next video drops. Thanks for watching You in a Garage.